Good morning. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. It is Monday, April 3rd, 2017. It's now 8:30 in the morning. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Selectman Dallas Tracy to lead us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Carl. Before we begin with item 2, there's one addition to the agenda, which is a proclamation. I'd like to ask the board for a motion to add that to 12.1, please, on the new business.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 2, public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board on any agenda item, limited to 3 minutes. Anybody? Jerry?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jerry Silbert.
You want to come here, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please.
I'm Jerry Silbert, 155 White Birch Drive, Guilford. I've come to speak on item 5, allowing alcoholic beverages for events on the green. As we all know, the Guilford Green is the centerpiece of our town and has been for centuries. The Guilford Arts Center did not bring its request to allow alcoholic beverages on the green to the Guilford Green Committee. We found this out through reviewing the Board of Selectmen agendas. And my understanding is there's no rush for the Board of Selectmen right now to make a decision about this, as the Arts and Crafts Center is several months away by now. And I understand that the Guilford Arts Center still has its request to the Board of Selectmen. And all I'd like to say as chairman of the Guilford Green Committee that we would appreciate the opportunity to consider this issue and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen before you make a decision about this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board on any agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. 3.1 is the approval of the March 20th, 2017, which was a regular meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? of the
Aye.
motion? Okay, motion approved. Second set is March 29th, special meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention, please.
Okay. Carried. Okay, thank you. Item 4, Guilford Preservation Alliance, Dennis Colton, received presentation regarding the GPA Witness Stone project. Dennis. Have a gentleman with you?
Yes, Doug Geiger.
Morning, Doug.
Hello.
Morning, Dennis. How you doing?
Good morning. So Doug and I are here to talk about this project that we're working on as a committee of the GPA called the Witness Stone Project. And I'm going to let Doug give us a little background on why we're doing this.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, let me say I've lived in Guilford since 1989 with my wife and 3 children, all 3 of whom have graduated from Guilford High School and got a wonderful education. I'm the chair of the Visual Arts Committee of the Shoreline Arts Alliance. We put on images every year. We've done that for more than 30 years. And when my children played soccer, I was a commissioner for one of the girls' leagues. So I've never really talked with the committee before, or anybody on the committee, because I've been very content with being in Guilford, and we like it here. We moved here in '89 from New Haven because we always came here on weekends, and we liked it, and it's our home. Dennis and I are 2 different people. Dennis is a historian, and I'm a child therapist, child, adolescent, and family therapist. Dennis teaches, and I worked at Clifford Beers for 25 years. I worked with first with suicidal, out of control and psychotic teenagers, evaluating them to determine whether they should be in the hospital or whether we could treat them in our outpatient offices. And then, after doing that for 9 years, I worked at Beers Central Clinic, working with a wide variety of children, but with a specialty working with high-functioning autistic children and treating children who have been abused and traumatized. And in doing that, we work with trying to have the child integrate the past with the present. We can't do away with the trauma that they experienced, but we can help them integrate what they've gone through. And doing that coincides with an interest I've had for more than 50 years. 50 years ago, I studied in Berlin, and ever since then, I've been wondering where I was. Back then, the Germans didn't do much work on their past. Everything was in the present. And when I left Berlin, I wondered, where were all these things that I've read about? Because it wasn't really talked about. If you're going back to Germany 50 years later, I experienced that it had changed a lot. The past was discussed. In almost every town and hamlet, there is a plaque for the people who were victims of the Nazis. In Berlin, they have a memorial for the murdered Jews of Europe, which is huge. It's in the old ministerial gardens. The American Embassy is right next to it. And it's a prime piece of property. It would be like doing something like that in Washington and putting it in the Rose Garden. So that's on a large scale. On a small scale in Berlin, they've started a program where they put small little stones in front of the apartments and the homes where the Berliners who had been deported and murdered. And they're very simple stones. They're called stumbling stones. They're cobblestone with a piece of brass on them. They state, here lived Hans Kohn, for example, born 1889, deported February 1st, 1943, murdered April 15th, Auschwitz. Very simple, very direct, not moralizing. And the Germans talk about this as creating a discussion with the past. Now, I know Dennis. Dennis told me about his research on slavery, and I was shocked to find out that we had slaves here in Guilford. And I suggested to him that one way for us to come to terms with the past, one way of having a discussion with the past, because we can't change the past, but we can have a discussion and learn from it, is by doing the same thing and taking a cue from the Germans as one way to address the past, and which is these memory stones, which we have renamed as witness stones. So with that, I'll let Dennis
Okay.
explain.
And first I'm going to pass out a document that shows a slave that was purchased by the selectmen in 1792. So 225 years ago, the selectmen in Guilford purchased a slave. And on the back side is the translation if you're having trouble reading 225-year-old cursive. But this is from the town library. And so our town history permeates so much of who we are, where we work, and how we live in our lives in Guilford. We sit here on the historic green, and you are part of a governing body that has continued for almost 380 years. We know a lot about Guilford's history, but some of that history is still being uncovered. So today we meet a young lady named Dinah, who was a slave to Elias Caldwell. And for whatever reason, we're not sure yet, but we hope to find out someday, the Board of Selectmen purchased her.
You need to free her. They said she worked for 4 years and she gets to be free.
Yeah,
Not
so
that it's right, but
no, what I'm saying is that
maybe
that looks
part
like
of
that
the-
looks like the right answer.
Yeah.
Although I'm hoping to find in the almshouse records that maybe she worked for those 12 pounds. So maybe she was purchased, worked for 4 years, paid off her
looks like.
purchase price, and so that's something that we see here. So it's again a little bit of history that's just sitting on a shelf in the library. I think the top shelf that because of Edith Nettleton, she documented every single thing that went in there. But our Witness Stone project, in a sense, is trying to add richness to the history of Guilford by uncovering the untold stories of some of our citizens by restoring the history of the enslaved. Our goal is that in 366 days, we would install a witness stone the size of a brick in the sidewalk in front of a place where an enslaved person lived, worked, or prayed. In conjunction with 8th grade students at Adams Middle School, we'll research primary and secondary documents to find out details and write a story about a person who could represent the institution of slavery in Guilford. The story of slavery in Guilford can be uncovered even if it's not readily available. Some of the historic resources can be found in places like the Property Records Vault on the first floor here, the probate records now found in Madison, and in the Henry Whitfield Museum and at the Guilford Free Library. Once the research and analysis is completed by our students, the Witness Stone Project Committee wishes to engage the community by giving talks and forums at the library, after which students will conduct something called civic engagement. So the new state and local curriculum says not only should the kids learn things, like in 7th grade they're learning about water needs in Africa, but they did fundraisers and they collected money and they're doing something about it. So we're hoping these students we're going to work with the students to have an event, to have an installation event of this first stone. So this is what the top of the stone would look like, something very simple, the size of half of a brick. So it's really not a big thing, but it's just the size of half a brick. And it resembles very much what they're doing in Germany. So maybe someone coming back from Germany who saw one of these stones there to signify a residence of a Jewish person before they were deported, they would see this and say, oh, this is something somewhat similar. Now, our hope is after the first year, we're going to do one, so our little mantra we keep telling each other is one soul, one stone, 1 year. We want to do one of these properly, but after the first year, continue doing this to probably 3 a year with the 8th graders, so they could continue doing research of slaves and different slaves and who they were and who they worked for and what they did, and then continue the process. We have about enough information for probably about a decade's worth of research, so probably about 25 or 30 slaves. I have enough preliminary research to be able to do that. I have evidence of about 70 slaves, but that includes Madison because they were the same town back in the day. So the reason we're here is we want you folks to be in a level of agreement or consensus that this is a good project.
When will it start then?
We would start working on it in the fall. We would start in the fall.
This would have been good. Well, my son's 1 year too late. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's just, this is, Doug gave it to me like in
great.
February, so we're really already.
No, this
but,
is good.
but we're doing this. You have other kids. You have lots of kids, right?
I do. I have a couple more coming
Yeah.
up. Yeah. So they'll be good.
Yeah.
There'll be enough slaves
Yeah.
for them to get to
Yes,
one, right?
and
It's terrible, but yeah.
and then we want to, because we're going to be putting these on public roadsides and on sidewalks. So we want the Board of Selectmen, and we've already agreed wholeheartedly that we wouldn't put it in front of a house of somebody who doesn't want it put. So if somebody has a house, it's a public sidewalk, but we wouldn't put the stone there. The second reason is if we start the project with the students, and then somebody says, "Oh, you can't do this," then it becomes a real issue for all of us. And the third reason is the first stone, this is just a draft, but the first slave we want to remember or restore his memories of a slave named Moses. He was a slave of Reverend Amos Fowler, who was the pastor of the First Congregational Church. Now, I found evidence that about 8 pastors had slaves, so that was a very common thing for preachers to own slaves. But Moses happened to live, let me see what the address is here, 31 Park Street, which is right here. So Moses lived, and Amos Fowler lived right here. So we would love to, 366 days from now, 4th of April, 2018 is the 50th anniversary of the death of Martin Luther King, for those of us who remember. And so that would be our first stone we would want to put in the ground on a Wednesday on the 5th of April, 2018, in front of the town hall. So that's the big reason we're here. Moses is a wonderful first candidate. Oh, by the way, Joel confirmed that. He has all the records, and he says, yes, someone
Sure
lived
he
here.
has.
Yes. And he's a big fan of the project, too. Moses is a wonderful first candidate for his name, his pedigree, and the history available to tell his story. He will also be a wonderful symbol of historic Guilford, Connecticut, by the fact that we are actively restoring the history of all of its citizens, especially those previously hidden. Please agree to our project and to work with our students to uncover the history and heritage of Guilford. And I'm going to give you guys a copy of this, too, so
Okay.
if you have any questions of detail.
Yeah, the record.
So what would you need, Joe, from us? Like, do we,
Nothing at this
do you want
point.
us to?
We don't need any action at all at this point.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, I think it's a great project.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Good work.
I think it's phenomenal.
Endorse it.
Yep.
Yeah,
If
that's
you
what I
wanna-
said. I moved that we endorse the project.
Then that's all we can do at this point.
Okay.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
I made a motion that we endorse the project.
Gary, you want to second that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much.
Were you at the Clifford Bears breakfast last week?
No, I
I was
wasn't.
gonna say, yeah, I was there.
You
Yeah,
were
a friend
there.
of mine's the development director, and Jennifer Catella. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, they have a
Great
know
work.
Alice?
similar
Yes.
project in
She's
Paris.
great. She was my student.
Wherever.
It was great. I just learned a lot about the organization the last couple of years.
Person
It's
was
phenomenal.
killed.
We have an
They,
office.
they
in
have a plaque
Guilford.
on the side
Oh,
of the
I didn't know
building,
that.
right on the corner of the building.
These-
That's
I
wonderful.
retired
There's
years
a
ago. Still-
professor down in Alabama who's doing it where the lynchings occur. He's putting big plaques up there. So
The man
we're
talked
hoping
about
to be part of
autism.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very
I know
much,
the
everybody.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. I have a lot of clients with that. That's why I'm doing a lot with them.
Sure.
What do you do?
Thank you.
Attorney, I do a lot of family law, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Take care. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Dennis.
People in the U.S. doing it.
Item 5, Police Chief, Jeff Hutchinson. Morning, Chief.
Good morning.
5.1, consider and take possible action on a policy for the Green regarding request to waive Section 214-2A of the Town Code to allow the serving of alcohol beverages during events on the Green. We'll start there. Okay, Chief.
Okay, so as you recall, there was a discussion regarding this issue that was brought up by the, following the application by the Handicrafts Center to allow, request a waiver for alcohol on the Green during their event. And what the selectmen had asked me to do was review a more broad, and bring forth a more broad recommendation for all events on the Green. So what I'm presenting to you today is specific, not specific to the handicrafts, but more of a broad approach to handling any events that might happen on the Green. So if you see some generalizations in there, those are kind of a necessity of what we're talking about. And any specifics that might come up depending on whether there's an approval or not would be point of discussion for any event that makes that request. I had provided previously, and I assume you have a copy of those recommendations. Now I can go through those point by point. I can discuss them in general. It's up to you.
I just, rather than reading, and I think we all have this, so maybe we can just ask some questions, okay?
Sure. One of the things I just want to add that was not included in there that I think is an important note is that if you choose to approve this policy, what you should also recommend and require is that any costs associated with security or monitoring of those events be borne by whatever organization is requesting those.
Okay.
You know, there might be, in some cases, there might be none, in some cases, there might be a lot. But I know certainly we have a special events budget, but it doesn't include everything that we haven't anticipated. So there might be occasion where you might need additional officers present, depending on what you approve or don't approve.
Okay. I agree on that. And first of all, thank you for putting this policy together, which, as you had mentioned, the board had requested. For clarification, could you, more or less for the general public, explain the acronym TIPS?
Yeah, TIPS is a training process that's an approved certification process for the state of Connecticut, whereby anybody handling the serving, consumption, delivery of alcohol goes through a particular training process. So bartenders, people that work the door, it's a training certification so they can recognize, number one, fake IDs, number two, make sure they're not over-serving people, so they have training in recognizing if somebody's been reaching the point of being overserved and that's at the point they're supposed to stop serving them. So the Department of Liquor Control for the state of Connecticut, in their best practices approach, requires, certainly when they make an approval and recommends for best practices, that anybody involved in the serving and delivery of alcohol have that training.
Okay.
And again, bearing in mind, all the requirements here are going to be the responsibility of whatever organization is running this.
As the host.
Yeah, the police won't be checking IDs. The
Right.
police won't be, making sure people are not overserved. That's not our. We can't do that.
I just for the viewing public here, item 2 on here, and the chief's recommended policy says entry and exit into the designated area shall be controlled by someone who has been TIPS trained, and that's why I asked the
Right.
chief to explain what TIPS means. Okay.
Right.
Is there a credential that goes with that? I mean, how
They get a certification. piece of
Are
paper.
they,
right?
are they
Yeah.
supposed to carry it with
Yeah.
them, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
The organization that is doing this requesting has responsibility to have the records of that.
Okay.
And it'll more likely come up if there's an issue. We're not going to go in and check the certification of everybody that's operating within there. That's responsibility of whoever's running that show. And if it's determined later on that they weren't and something happened, then that's more of where you're going to see that come up. And again, what hasn't been made clear to the public, or maybe I did in my intro, is that the majority, if not all of this, has been presented after close consultation with State of Connecticut Department of Liquor Control and the way they handle most of these events throughout the state. So
Do they actually get a card that they carry, or?
they get a piece of paper. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly what it looks like. I can certainly check that and let you know.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Item 3, and this is, I didn't get a chance to call you back when we talked about it the other day, but item 3, which is something that I think maybe we should take another look at, says entry into the designated area shall be restricted to people at least 21 years of age or more. And my concern was that if somebody has someone younger with them, they have a child,
Right.
a kid, they can't bring them into there. Would you modify that if it's an eating area?
If you wanted to modify it, the caution I would give you is that, somebody walking in with their 5-year-old holding their hand is a very obvious situation where someone under 21 is not likely to consume.
Right.
It's when you start getting into the 19 and 20-year-olds, and it creates more of a challenge for those serving, checking IDs, that sort of thing, to determine whether it's appropriate to have them in there or not. I'm not going to, it's an approach that's been taken throughout the state. It's a best practice approach to ensuring, if you're going to make sure that people are not being served underage, you start at point 1, which is the entry point, and make sure that no one under 21 years of age gets in there. So is there flexibility on it? I think that would, that's up to the Board of Selectmen to make that determination.
Okay.
I can tell you, all I can tell you is from our perspective and from a ability to limit the serving to those under 21, that's one of the easiest ways to do it. And as you break down those points of control, then it makes it a little more difficult. So
The problem is, Joe, you bring up, is that it's an eating area. It's just like you go
Right.
into restaurants, you go into, I mean, how do you, I guess it's
Right,
the
and this is-
server's responsibility.
it's the server's responsibility ultimately. Correct. Yeah. And where this is unique from a restaurant,
No, yeah.
yeah, it's
In the area, even if it was, let's say, a bar area, you're also proposing that they can't leave with them.
correct.
So
Right,
They
that
would go
I
into the
agree with.
bar area, to your point, it won't be a restaurant or a food area,
It would be, the way it's
No, it
proposed
is,
here
because they
is.
do have food.
well, that's what I'm saying. If it is a food area, then, of course you want people underage
Yeah.
to be able to go out
Yeah.
and go in and get food
That's
or
the point,
snacks or
yeah.
whatever. But they wouldn't be allowed in there if the alcohol was in there. So then if the alcohol was in a completely separate place, then you couldn't, interesting.
Well, I think the intent, and of course the chief can speak for itself, is that you don't want them to leave the area and go into the rest of the
Walk around
event.
downtown or any of that, yeah.
Right.
Correct.
That's correct. right.
Correct. Because then if you get outside of that area of control where
Then you
you're
got a
learning,
problem, yeah.
then you don't know where the
This is an
alcohol
area of control within the
Yeah.
controlled area of the entire
That's what's
fair.
recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's recommended.
Which I agree with, actually.
Which is a food area that's separate
Right.
from
But
the
if it's a
food
food
area.
It's
area,
food
you
and
struggle
drink,
with
so-
the underage.
Like,
It's
I'm just
very
thinking, if
real.
I was there with my little
Anybody,
one, what would I
yeah.
do? I wouldn't be able to buy food, I guess.
No, you wouldn't
Or
be
you
able
wouldn't
to
be
buy
able to.
alcohol.
No, the point
No, I
is.
can't go in there.
No, the point is,
Oh.
this recommendation is, if you have a food area, you would also, you would have a separate area for alcohol, so.
Okay.
But then you're locked into that area with your alcohol.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
But if you're eating or
Uncomfortable
drinking,
situation.
I mean, I guess, I mean,
I mean, are you really going to go in there and stand there with
I
a
think
drink and
Yeah, well,
drink
that's-
while your family's doing everything else?
Yeah.
probably not.
And this isn't just.
I mean,
to
this
make it
event's
clear,
a
this
little
isn't
different
state-
'cause you don't really
This
see a
isn't a
lot
state
of
law.
kids.
This isn't a law.
I
This is
understand
a-
where you're coming from completely, but the
Yeah.
mechanics
Yeah.
from the handcrafts perspective is gonna be a struggle.
Okay.
And again, we're talking, think more globally at some
know.
of the other events that might come forward, and obviously you have the ability to review
Yeah,
each
I
event
think it
that
would
comes
depend
to
on
you.
the event.
Yeah.
Like if it was an Oktoberfest, then I think you're thinking about a different type of, really, people are there,
To drink,
kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe. Or wine tasting, they would be there to
Right.
drink, right?
And I believe that we asked the chief to do this not only for one event, but like you just said,
Yeah.
to have a policy that would cover
What
any
is
event
that-
that would request us to waive the ordinance.
Right, and listen, Chief, from your perspective, you have to be conservative, and I don't disagree with that aspect of it, so
To-
you did your job.
Thank you.
to Mr. Silvert's point earlier in this meeting.
Yeah.
What exactly is the charge of the Green Committee? I mean,
The Green Committee, as far as I understand the charter and the ordinance, does not have any jurisdiction to waive the
I'm not asking.
ordinance
Are
on
they-
the alcohol.
Are they charged with use in, not only the physical properties of the green, but the use of the green?
No.
No, they're only
No.
making recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, who has the power.
Right, but I guess to what Charlie's saying was we want them to weigh in on it, but this is the second year. Did they weigh in last year? Jerry, did you guys weigh in last year?
But neither did the police. That's how we got where
This
we
is
are.
the second year. They're, okay. So you weren't informed last year either.
And
No,
the
it's
police
not their-
weren't either. That's how we got to where we are
okay.
today.
I
It's
thought
not
the
their,
police were.
it's not their authority to weigh in on this. It's totally the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
We can only make a recommendation.
That's right.
No, I knew
Well,
that,
yeah.
but you weren't even advised, I guess. is what
But I didn't know if you also made recommendations on other uses.
We can make a recommendation whenever the green is used, yes, but it's simply a recommendation.
And I don't think he's asking for more than a recommendation. We're just asking to weigh in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is all this is, quite honestly, a recommendation. You
Yeah.
all have the authority to make that decision.
Okay, any further comment on this? I'm totally on board with this policy. I think it's a good policy.
Yeah, as far as.
After I got my clarification.
Yeah, as far as the next.
But we can waive it I'll make a motion that we pass the policy. That's drafted.
Oh, wait, okay.
Well,
We're
we can
making a
discuss
I'll
it.
second it
Okay.
for discussion.
Okay, motion
We
made
do have to-
and seconded. Discussion.
Well, we just have to be a little careful, once this policy is accepted, it becomes policy, and, that's the discussion. Do we want,
Well, keep in mind, policy can always be changed.
okay,
But for now,
anything can be changed,
That's
I
right.
guess, okay.
okay. So what's your discussion?
Going to have a lot of grumpy Shakespeareans.
Yeah. Yeah,
Why, what do you
I
mean?
don't think I'm here making any friends today, obviously.
Wait, why?
Why? Have you ever been to a Shakespeare?
Yes, but they're not supposed to have alcohol there.
Yeah.
So nothing to say they can't still do what they weren't supposed to do to begin
I
with.
know, but now we're giving,
Right? I mean, they weren't doing it anyway.
They-
And they weren't supposed to do it anyway. Right? Am I
Well,
wrong?
I don't understand
Pam?
where you're going with this.
I just want,
I guess they're saying now that
once we have it,
to
Leo,
police.
to Cindy's point, I mean, yes, things were happening, but they were not supposed to be happening, and now we're even making that,
Okay, first of all, this policy is for the sale and the consumption of alcohol on the green. It still does not permit people bringing their own alcohol.
That's a
on the
good
green.
point, that's true.
Am I correct,
I mean,
Chief?
that doesn't
You're
change that part of it.
It
That's
does
right.
not change it.
It
We still have
seeks
an
to
ordinance.
semi-control it.
Right, we still have an ordinance that prohibits alcohol on
So
the
now the
green.
Shakespeare people, they can sell alcohol, Carl, possibly, if they apply.
They
As
have
long
to
as
come
they
before
remain
this
locked
board.
in a certain area.
Yeah.
Right.
I would make
Locked in
them,
the area.
I would make them present theirs in sonnet form.
They could do it, they could sell special ticket
Monday
prices.
morning,
If
too.
they get to sit in the area for the alcohol.
to sit next to her?
But then I'd never understand what the hell they're talking about.
I
Understand
Yeah.
this change is nothing,
I,
except if,
okay, the discussion I guess I am seeking will probably be with the next agenda item.
okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this policy? And understand that this policy is only for the sale. And to have the permission to sell alcohol on the green, you'd have to come before this board to begin with.
And also, I appreciate that this is a starting point and may
Okay.
change or whatever as experiences
Right.
take place.
And there are physical constraints that are required in order to maintain this policy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has to be a contained area and
Physical barrier.
physical barriers and so on.
And proper training.
In developing this policy, did you have any discussion with any groups in town? That potentially
Lieutenant Provencher met with the group from the handcrafts, from
Oh,
the
he did?
handcrafts, because they, they have obviously a pending request, so
What was
they had a
their
particular
re-
interest.
Did we get to hear their reaction?
You're probably going to hear it in the next item, but
Know that.
but I think they were looking for fewer restrictions with regard to the point that was brought up with for the food and the alcohol being in the same location and being able to bring children in with you if you were attending the event and you had your children with you. So yeah, they had some of the same concerns that were expressed.
But we can waive that. That's the whole point.
But they were very
I'd rather have-
they were very cooperative and helpful and
Yeah, we've got to do something to rein it in. And,
To Joe's
yeah.
point, I think it's better to have the policy and then be able to look at it
Yeah.
case by case, because there are different types of, I mean, this isn't like, people are asking us every other day to bring alcohol, to sell alcohol in the green, but still, I think it has to tread appropriately.
From a historic standpoint, this policy would protect the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen and the town, because
Yeah.
never with the handcrafts, but many years ago, we had a problem with the firemen.
It's always the firemen.
Yeah, I know, it's always the firemen. But no, I mean,
making all kinds of friends.
that's okay, Joe. What the hell, we're retiring. No, but
Still got to live here.
yeah, we want to. No, but it became a real problem.
Yeah.
And they finally then just abolished alcohol in the green. So I think that this is a good start.
I remember the standing on the green with a sledgehammer smashing the car. If you remember that event, you used to pay $1 to destroy a car in the center of the green at the Fireman's Bazaar.
And
What was Jerry's specific?
Okay, is there any further discussion? Can I call for a vote? All those in favor of adopting this policy, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay. Item 5.2, discuss and take possible action on the request from the Guilford Arts Center to waive Section 214-2, small a, of the Town Code to allow the serving of beer and wine during its craft expo on the green taking place July 14th to the 16th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? No. Motion.
Just-
Jerry?
That went fairly quickly.
I was just going to say, we've had a lot of I was just going to make the record that we've had a lot of discussion on this issue, but.
We have a, I guess I'm a little concerned that we have, and I understand they don't have the authority to approve or disapprove, but we have a green committee, which I guess we've given the responsibility of considering events which are specific to the green. I would be a little more comfortable if we had referred this to them for their discussion and recommendation, not that it's binding. And if I'm late because I missed the vote,
No, we're still voting.
I just, they spend a lot more time thinking about the green than I do. So I would be willing to refer this to the Green Committee for their discussion and bring it back for a vote. I'm not opposed to having it. I voted for it last year, but I just, I think there's a reason we have the Green Committee, and we ought to be cognizant of their views.
Well, and the other piece of input that we could, if we wanted to, is ask for their input on considering things have changed now because of what we just passed. What the applicants inputted. I guess they got to follow it. They know what it is. They were part of it.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Want to withdraw it, or you want to go ahead with the vote?
I could amend it that, well, I'll withdraw it.
Who's going to withdraw the second? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't think I seconded, but okay.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we refer for their consideration, and just for the record, if it comes back on the next meeting, I'm going to not be here, but I would vote for this anyway, because I'm going to be on vacation.
Okay. Then I need a
I'll
motion.
second that. I'll second the motion that we refer it to the Green Committee for their recommendation.
Okay.
For the review. Well,
Review and recommend it. Review, and whatever action
And
they choose
input,
to
yeah.
take. And input, that's a better term.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Last time for a call vote. Is everybody paying attention? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
You need to take a vote before the chief makes another wisecrack.
Jerry, when do you vote? When do you meet?
Third Wednesday of this month.
All right, could you get it back to us as soon as possible?
Yes.
Thank you.
If I could just clarify, when you're addressing it next time?
No, we won't be, because they're not to the third.
That'll be after our meeting.
After our
When it's
meeting.
next on the agenda, I know there was discussion about the policy, you passed the policy.
Yeah.
Policy is
And then
stays.
you were discussing whether there were any approvals would be subject to any changes.
We were
or-
waiving the policy. That was the motion.
No,
For this,
no.
No?
The motion is to whether
right.
to allow them to serve alcohol. That's, we were just waiting for their input.
Okay, but and all the conditions are subject to that policy, or were you looking to make any
No,
amendments to that?
subject to the policy. We're not going to change the policy. Okay? Everybody understand that?
I understand. I didn't know anything
Thank
about
you.
waiving.
Yeah.
So it's whether it comes back to this board with the Green Committee's recommendation, and it's up to this board whether we grant the serving of alcohol for that event.
But
Okay?
if we vote to serve,
It's within this policy.
Within the policy.
That we
Yeah.
just passed.
has to abide by the policy.
We're not going to change the policy. Okay? Okay? Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Item 6, in-house counsel. Pam Miller, consider and take possible action to participate in the CCM electrical bid program on April 11th and authorize the first selectman to award the bid during the 4-hour window, and if award, authorize the first selectman to exercise the required contract amendment. Morning, Pam.
Good morning. We have participated in CCM, the Connecticut Council of Municipality electricity bid program 2 other times. So this will be our 3rd time participating. And they have an agent that they've hired, Bay State Consultants, who are very knowledgeable in the area and kind of guide us with electricity memos and markets, and they have recommended that we go out to bid at this time. It's before the summer and after the winter. They've historically found this is a good time to go out to bid. Our current contract expires in December. I am aware of at least 4 bidders that will be participating, and the consultant believes we might have a 5th bidder. And what happens is the contracts have all been reviewed prior to the bidding. I've sent them also to outside counsel just for a double check. So the contracts have been approved, and we'll just get numbers on this day. And representatives from the Board of Ed will attend that review, and then we have to award within a window, similar to our oil and gas bids. And then both the first selectman and the superintendent have to literally sign the contracts. And just one thing to note, we participated in a a certain type of bid last time where, based on the consultant's advice, she said that if we did this program where on the hottest days in the summer, if we were able to try to control the, lower or raise our temperatures, our air conditioning temperatures, that we could realize the savings. It's a pretty complex, but she has shown that because Cliff Gurnham from the schools did cooperate with that program, did do what he was supposed to do, and I think they saved, off the top of my head, it was something like $30,000 just based on the fact that he raised the temperatures on those hottest days. So that's interesting. We'll be looking at that program as well in this bid. And that's it.
Is that something that would come under the Johnson Controls program? Or at least we might ask them to look at?
We would, but not, they're not
Not for this bid,
They're not ready
not
yet.
for today, but I just,
Right, no.
that should be something that they ought to be able to help us with.
But they're not, nowhere near that. at
We're
this
not
point.
there, yeah, exactly.
Need a motion, please?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Ms. Pam, you gonna see the assessor? Is he going to join you on this one, or
I don't know.
6.2?
Yeah, why don't you come on up? And I'm not sure we need executive session, so let's
No,
talk.
I don't think we
and-
do.
Yeah,
Discuss
I
and
don't
take
really think we
possible
do.
action
How
on
are
a
you,
fee
Ed?
proposal from appraiser Albert Frankie of Averstar for appraisal work for tax appeals from 2017 reval. Executive session may be required, but I don't think we need one for this.
I don't think
We don't
so
have another bidder, so,
Yeah.
okay.
And so basically, Al Frankie's been doing our appraisals and working with Ed, for how many years?
Since the 2002 grand list.
There you go. And also worked very closely with Chuck Anders, our outside counsel doing our tax appeal work. I always run by Al's proposals by Chuck to get a feel for, whether they are market and, it's a market proposal. Chuck has only good things to say about Al Frankie's services and his familiarity with Guilford properties. We did get he has the current contract, obviously, which will expire after the current reval. And so this is for the 5-year period starting 2017. And he did submit a proposal. I met with Joe, and we actually pushed back on some numbers. And he did cooperate in that pushback. So he then submitted a revised service proposal, and we recommend that we continue with Al Franke of Advisora and waive the bidding. And just like last time, there are 3 choices. You pay either Plan C is you pay hourly, Plan A is some all-inclusive price, and then Plan B is kind of a hybrid. You all voted for Plan B last time. That seemed to work to our favor.
But what's the benefit of waiving the bidding process? I'm trying to understand.
It's more about, it's almost like a professional contract. It's just that, Chuck, and I suppose Ed, I know, Ed, you can speak up, but I'll just speak for Chuck.
Yeah.
And Chuck just, the efficiencies of working with somebody that's, it's so familiar, been working on all of our appraisals for so many years
So
versus
he's-
somebody that's new, that's coming in, gearing up, doesn't know. And the guy, I can only say what outside counsel said, that he's, he's professional, he knows what he's doing, and it makes sense,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Al is excellent at what he does, and Al has greatly benefited the community by his services. And my highest recommendation would be to hire Al again.
Couple of questions. Quarterly installments due payable July 1st, 2007. How do we know how much this will be for? It's based on We don't know what's going to be appealed. We don't know what's going to be challenged, correct?
Well, you have a history, and you can base, I think, guesstimate on that history.
Okay, so he bills based on, oh, yeah.
Well, he bills
Certain
upon what
situation
he
where nobody
performs.
appeals, there's no work.
Right.
Right.
So he rebates.
Yeah, we wouldn't be
everything.
out
I
of
just-
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
we
just-
wouldn't be out. No, it's
I was
just
just
the
a little
reality.
surprised that we started paying immediately.
It's more like a retainer.
Before the appeals were filed.
It's like a retainer.
It's like a
And-
retainer.
Okay.
And, just as for our budget purposes, when I do the legal budget tax appeals, I'm looking at all these numbers and trends that Ed gives me, based on his experience. And we know that there's usually
There are,
this number of appeals
there are
within.
certain properties whose owners appeal regularly.
Perennials, yes.
There are regulars.
Right.
Okay, that we can count on.
Yeah.
You can count on them.
You can count on. So,
Do we know approximately what the last 5 years has been, what the expenses have been?
Numbers?
In numbers and dollars?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but, I can.
well, we
get
can
it to you.
just look at the financial,
I mean,
in
yeah,
the
I'm sure
budget
we can.
package, it's in there.
I just
Yeah.
don't have it in front of me.
And he's,
I don't have it in front of me either,
He's
no.
quick to point out that, you always take a risk when you offer a fixed fee, which is what we had asked for. We had always historically paid hourly. And I was kind of getting sick of seeing those bills with the .2 for a phone call. And so we asked for some fixed fee proposals. And he has, shown that he actually lost money based on the fixed fee last year. So it was a good choice on our part, put it that way. And I would recommend doing that again.
Or it didn't make as much money. Lost money is probably not the right word.
Didn't make as much money. That's, fair enough.
Any discussion? Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the Plan B option from advisor as presented in the bid.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No, not for that.
Okay, unanimous then. Thank you. Okay, moving along, we've got a number of appointments and resignations. Okay, item 7.1, act on a recommendation to appoint Rob Federici as an alternate to the Public Works Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire May 31st, 2018. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Act on a recommendation to appoint Arnold Secreti? Secreta, thank you. To the Hazard Mitigation Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire September 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Act on a recommendation to appoint Aaron Hirschman to the Board of Ethics for a term to expire July 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Act on a recommendation to appoint David Egan as an alternate to the Economic Development Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire April 30th, 2018.
Alternate.
Alternate, yep.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Act on a recommendation to appoint Michael DeMayo as an alternate to the Economic Development Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire April 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Act on a recommendation to appoint Keith Harvey as an alternate to the Shellfish Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous, okay. Act on a recommendation to appoint Michael Salzbach to the Historic District Commission for a term to expire January 31st, 2022. Motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Act on a recommendation to move Jonathan Trotter from an alternate to a regular member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire February 28th, 2021.
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Act on a recommendation to appoint Teresa Buchanan as an alternate to the Historic District Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire January 31st, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, and that is it. Request for the use of town property, I have 8.1 to 8.4.
I would move that we approve the two uses and the two signs as listed in the agenda.
All in
Second?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, correspondence. I don't have any at the moment. Anybody? Okay. Committee reports.
I don't have a committee report, but I think we should recognize that on April 6th, this coming week, we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the United States entering World War I.
That's right.
And the question of the day is, who is the only member of Congress who voted against us entering the war?
You're a history guy. Tell us.
Mrs. Rankin from Congress. She voted against, she was a peace advocate. She voted against the declaration of war, not only in 1917, but also in 1941.
She was still there?
Who
Wow.
did she represent?
I'm not sure what state, but she was a member of Congress.
Interesting.
Jeanette Rankin.
Okay. Any old business? I do have an update that I received from COST last week. I would like to share with the board and with the general public on the teachers' pension fund, which is a topic of wide discussion. House Speaker Arsimowitz, I think I said that right, recently confirmed what COST has been hearing all along, that they don't have the votes to move with a proposal to shift the teachers' pension cost to the towns, which is nice to hear, or to allow towns to tax hospitals. That's too important to Guilford. The only hospital we have is the Goose Lane, which, if we did allow the tax, would be another $300,000 in taxes, which would help us a little bit. But I don't think that's going anyplace. However, he did announce in a speech he made, I forgot to what group, that he would be open to phase the cost of the teacher's pension in over 5 years to the town. But I don't know where that's going. The legislative committee has stripped the governor's proposal to change the ECS grant and special education funding out of the bill. Instead, they have moved forward with two proposals, HB 7270, which calls for an adequate study of the ECS formula. We don't know what that means. They're just going to study it more, so we won't know until June what that's going to mean. Resident state troopers, it doesn't apply to us because we have our own police force. What is important is that the health district consolidation bill, if you might have been aware of, which would mean that we would have to be part of a consolidation or regional health district, which would be costly to us, is dead, as they say in committee. We didn't think that was going anyplace. So that's good news. I testified against that. So I'm glad to hear that's dead in committee. And mandate relief, there's very little movement on mandate relief. So in essence, there's not too much going on up there, which is no surprise. But at least the teacher's pension is not making too much traction. So Board of Finance did not include that in the budget, and I'm glad that they didn't, although I was a little bit leery about it. But so far it's not going anyplace. That's all I have on that. So. All right.
The only other comment I'd make on old business, going back to my request that we defer to the Green Committee, This
I have a
town,
comment to that.
this town operates substantially on a lot of volunteer work, on a lot of volunteer efforts on commissions and committees for no compensation other than their belief that they're providing some value to the town. And I think it's dependent on us to respect that and allow them to do their job, even though it may slow down the process in some case or whatever. But I think these committees deserve the respect of the Board of Selectmen for doing their duty. So that's why I felt that that was important.
On that note, Tracy, I would, I'm going to use some of my privilege and write to the chairman and ask them to meet sooner than the third week. I think the Shoreline Handicraft Group has waited long enough, and I would like the Green Committee to act sooner rather than later. I mean, we hold special meetings, and so do other committees. I think it would behoove them, the Green Committee, to meet sooner rather than the third week, so that we can make our decision, and the Handcraft group can know one way or another. So they have to let their vendors know, and not to hold them out until May of some time.
Yeah, it would be the first week
Okay,
of
do
May.
you people agree with me?
Yeah,
Okay,
That makes sense.
all right. So I'm not going to wait till May, and so we might have to have a special meeting for other things, and if we do, I'll include their decision. So I'm going to ask them to meet in the next week or two, rather than wait 3 more weeks for them to meet.
And the only thing I'd add, Joe, if you guys do at the next meeting, when I'm not going to be there, that you consider allowing them a waiver of the waiver to, in the designated area, to not limit it to any age group.
Okay.
Just limit the serving. Remember, what we talked about.
So noted. Okay. Anything else?
By the way, she was from Montana.
Who?
Rankin.
Oh,
Yeah.
Rankin, okay. Did you look it up?
I did.
I don't see anybody wishing to address the board public forum, so I'll ask for I'm sorry?
You got a proclamation.
Oh, Jesus, I forgot my own proclamation. Okay, thank you. This was item 12.
I'll move the proclamation, Jeff.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Don't forget to sign the proclamation. All right, no other business. I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good week. Gentlemen, please.
The equipment wasn't compatible, so we had to buy, every time we bought a new SUV, we needed the new equipment. So after this year, we're going to be fully operational with all Ford Interceptor utility vehicles, and that's why you'll see those equipments for light bars and radios and equipment requirements in the cars dropping substantially. Again, the cars really, there's not a whole lot to talk about with those, other than any questions you might have specifically for the numbers and why we need them. It's just a function of when they hit about 100,000 miles, our projections, they spend way more
Same
time
thing,
in the shop than they do on the road. And
But this is following the vehicle replacement program that's been established,
correct.
right?
The one change I will point out is 17, 18, we had projected 3 this year and 3 next year.
Yeah.
We had to make a switch to 4 this year and 2 next year.
Because of use.
Because of use, number one, and because we added, and we'll know in 3 more weeks, but we added a canine unit to our staff, and they require an assigned car. So that car, we held over a car with 100,000+ miles in this year's budget, used an older one. And so moving forward, if we take that 4th, we can still survive dropping next year down to the 2.
that car has to be specially equipped.
Correct.
It's not a regular patrol car.
It's a regular patrol car. It's just equipped for the canine with buzzers to let the dog out. It has fans and air conditioning, so the dog is safe when it's in the car and the officer's not in the car with it. That sort of stuff.
Okay.
And it's marked differently with stickers and warnings for people that it's a K-9 car. So that counts for the shift from 3 to 4, and then next year from 3 to 2. As we look at the building, not a whole lot of cost projected. Really, the only reason I'm mentioning this driveway repair is, as you know, our driveway enters from 77. It serves a private business on one side, it serves us, and then it serves the dog pound and the fire department in the back. And so I was telling the commissioner outside